Hello, everyone. This is Cheyenne Marling and want to discuss interview do's and don'ts, some important tips to keep in mind as you're going through the process. And there's a lot of information in this quote unquote brief presentation. So feel free to pause as we go through this to really digest all the information that's made available on this slide deck. So to kick right into it, as you begin interviewing, you really want to overall make sure that you research, prepare, and practice at every stage during the process. Look into the company, look into who you're interviewing with, what are other employees saying about the employer, practice in answering your questions out loud in front of a mirror, sample questions to ask, and so forth. So always be prepared through every stage in the process. When you get into the phone interview, and this typically the first stage with either internal, external HR, sometimes even the first round with the hiring manager, it's really important to make sure that you obviously cut out all the phone, all the distractions, and that includes your cell phone, the doorbell, the gardener next door, your dog, what have you. Really make sure you cut out all the distractions. But most importantly, since they can't see you, they're trying to get a gauge of who you are just by talking to you on the phone. So it's really important to physically smile as you're answering the questions so you can portray that energy through the phone, because they're going to try to assess, is this someone I can see myself working with? So really project that energy through as you're having that dialogue with them, and try to read your audience, because obviously you can't see them in person, but if you feel that you might be losing them, that you're drifting off in your answers, make sure that you're keeping your answers concise, on point, still answering the question, but not getting into tangents. And typically the video interview is becoming very, very common right now. So if you do have an interview that's via video, you want to make sure that you're familiar with the technology. That includes your camera, your the technology that's being used for the interview, and make sure you have the links downloaded. Sometimes there's a Zoom and there's Microsoft Teams and so forth. Make sure you're familiar with your microphone, everything's working. Test with other individuals. Again, obviously cut out all distractions. Make sure you prepare your surroundings, that you have lighting that's lighting up your face so you're not dark. Dress to impress. The last thing you'd want to do is have to get up unexpectedly during the interview, and you are dressed with a suit on top and then sweats at the bottom. So, obviously when you dress to impress, you also have that kind of image coming across that you're more professional versus being more laid back in your sweatpants or shorts. Practice looking at the camera and make sure that your computer is set up to avoid any pop-ups or Outlook or emails coming up. So you're really focused on the interview, and your interviewer is going to be focused on you. The in-person interview, obviously dress sharp, be early. Worst case scenario, if you're there too early, sit in your car, prepare, get time to collect yourself, and breathe. Make sure you have a firm handshake. There's nothing worse than having a limp kind of fish handshake. So kind of practice your firm and not too firm handshake. Have your materials, your kind of brag book ready to go, things that you've done, accomplished, and make sure you make good eye contact. If you're drifting away, looking away at the ceiling or away from the person, it's as if you're trying to hide something. You're not being completely transparent. So make sure you're looking them in the eye, smile, and again, show that energy and enthusiasm. Now, sometimes occasionally you might have the lunch interview, and this is always kind of a wrench in the process that sometimes many of you are not expecting. So if you do happen to have a lunch interview, make sure that you eat a snack before, because sometimes things could be delayed. You hate to have that little, stomach that's growling through the process that you're embarrassed about. Make sure you pick something on the menu that's easy to eat. One time I had a candidate interview, and he got crab legs, and his crab legs were going everywhere, shooting off the table. So pick out something easy to eat. Don't get distracted by other individuals in the restaurant, the ambience, and be friendly with everyone. I had one person get turned down during a lunch interview because they were not courteous to the hostess, and they were very I guess not so nice. So make sure that you're courteous with everyone, because manners count, not just with the person you're interviewing with, but with absolutely everyone. So some interviewing do's, obviously make sure your social media is in order. Always be prepared through the process. Compliment the interviewer. This is a great way to have an icebreaker. If you're going into an office and there's that kind of lull that you're either walking in or getting settled in, think of something beforehand. Think of something that you've done in your research that kind of wowed you. For example, you could say to the interviewer, I happen to notice that your company has grown by this percent over the last 2 or 3 years. That's fantastic. Tell me, how did your company achieve this, and what are the forward plans? That does a couple things. That shows that you've done your research, you're complimenting the company, but the interviewer is going to take it as an indirect compliment. And it also starts off the interview with more of a dialogue versus a quote unquote question answer interview discussion. Be sure to relax, smile, and breathe and just calm down. Put on the mindset of a consultant. If you go in thinking, okay, what do you need from me? What are you looking to accomplish with your program? And then you can turn that around and let them know how you can help them. Put on that consultative mindset with, what do you need? What are you looking to achieve? And this is how I can help you. Now, you obviously don't make it that obvious, but I always like to use the shoe salesman approach, or kind of comparison, I guess I should say, that if I go into a shoe store and I'm looking for high heels, the last thing I want to do is have the shoe salesman try to sell me sandals or flip-flops. So, understanding what the person or what the company or what the hiring manager is looking for first before you start kind of letting them know how you can help them will be a big differentiator in letting them know how your skills match what they're looking for versus another candidate. When you are asked questions, be sure to reference specific examples. For example, if they ask you, have you done a BIA? You want to use a specific example. Don't go into too much detail, keep it concise, but give them a good feeling that you really know what you're talking about. The worst thing you can do is say, oh yeah, I do BIAs all the time. I love doing BIAs. Well, that leaves the interviewer thinking, do they really even know what a BIA is? So be sure to reference specific examples, but stay concise and stay away from tangents, because if once you get onto a tangent, you're going to lose their focus, and they're going to drift off to something else their next meeting. So for example, if they ask you about a BIA and you start talking about a BIA and then you're implementing the program and then you talk about testing the program, well, they only asked you about the BIA, so you've already lost them. They may not even, again, they may already be thinking about their next meeting. So make sure you stay on point when you're answering the question and keep it concise. Be sure to highlight your tangible and intangible, your leadership skills, again, as it pertains to the job you're interviewing for. Always, always, always send thank you notes. And even if you don't have the person's email address, that's okay. Send it to the person who scheduled the interview, be it the internal or external recruiter. Make sure you send the thank you letter so they can send it forward on your behalf. And the thank you letter should thank them for your time or their time, express your interest in the opportunity, why you're excited about the position, why you feel you're fit, and why they should consider you for the role, and what makes you different from perhaps other candidates. And the genuine interest. As you wrap up the interview, you want to thank them for their time and show that genuine interest and close the interview. Hi, Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I'm excited about this position for the following reasons. And ask them what the next step might be. So some interview don'ts. Again, don't get into tangents. Don't command the discussion and talk too much. They perhaps have several questions they need to get through. And if you talk too much and command the discussion, they cannot appropriately assess your skills in comparison to the other candidates if they cannot get through all the questions. Never ever lie or be negative. If they ask you about a certain experience that you do not have, be honest and say, you know what, I have not done ABC, but I am up for the challenge, and I'm typically a quick study and look forward to taking that on. Don't ever overdo it. Also, never circumvent the process. If someone else set up the interview, Don't reach out to the hiring manager on the side. Don't send them a LinkedIn request. I don't want that to come off badly, but I've actually had hiring managers decline candidates because the candidate sent them a friend request or a LinkedIn request on LinkedIn, and that showed them that the person was not being respectful of the process. So always be respectful, go through the process. Whoever is scheduling the interviews, communicate with them, send them the thank you letters, and it's just always best to be safe than sorry. And if you certainly lack initiative, you're going to be ruled out of the process very, very quickly. Always prepare for the awkward questions. I think a lot of this is speaks for itself, but still very important to bring up. As far as with compensation, many states these days, they cannot ask you what your current comp is. They can still ask you what you're looking for or what you're targeting as far as your search, but they cannot ask you, in many states legally, they cannot ask you what your current compensation is. Questions to ask. I mean, obviously, these are very good questions. You want to focus on what does success look like within the organization? What do they want you to accomplish in the first, 6 to 9 months? Asking that question gives you a read of where they are in their program, what they're looking to accomplish, and you can turn that around and let them know how you have done those specific goals or responsibilities with other organizations. And again, understanding what the leadership has within the organization is also is very important to highlight as far as a question to ask the company. Questions to avoid. Obviously, a lot of these are very obvious, but I feel like it's always important to bring up and just have it there. I know a lot of candidates will ask us about the flexibility to work from home. In many cases, there are more and more companies that are doing that. And if so, it's something they'll certainly highlight to attract candidates. And typically, it's not something you would want to bring up, but it's something that typically, if they have it available, believe me, they're certainly going to bring it up in the process. Here are some common questions to be prepared for, and there's a link at the bottom there for some 100 top interview questions that Monster has provided. And I hope you have found, again, this information helpful. As always, we're here to help you. And if you have any questions, feel free to go to our website, reach out to our recruitment team, sign up for our BCM career alerts, and you can always request any of our complimentary research. Again, I hope this has been helpful, and thanks so much.